Hello, my friends. How are you? It's Wednesday. It is Christmas week. And before we begin, let me just remind any of you who are watching from Facebook that you can do the thing that is down in the comments. You can go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and give permission for me to see your name so that I don't have to go, hey, Facebook user. Not that I mind calling you Facebook user. That's cute too. All righty. So hello, I'm Mary Rose Wood. I am an author. You might know me from my middle grade books, or you might know me from Path of the Storyteller, which is my new online platform for writers offering courses, training, mentorship, and community to help you be as good a writer as you dream of being. So I'm very glad to see you guys here today. I know we've got cookies to bake and all kinds of stuff, but I still want you to feel free to post in the comments if you have any questions about what I'm going to talk about today, or if you have any questions at all about writing, I'm here for you. All right. So we have a topic today. It has to do with mystery. It has to do with being forthcoming. It has to do with spilling the beans. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I've got my Christmas tree earrings on today. So if you're watching this in the replay at some future date, just know that we're going live today, the day before Christmas Eve, 2020. So we wrap presents, right? We wrap them. We don't want the people to know what we're going to give them until they unwrap it. So there's a fun kind of secrecy about that, right? It's like, it makes it better. It just makes it more adorable if we conceal, the goodies. Likewise, those of us who have, little kids at home, I don't anymore, but I sure did at one time. We like to tell them a story about Santa that just makes the holiday great. Now, and I know that Santa is like super real, but there are people out there who say it's just a story. I'm not going to get into a fist fight with anybody about this. I know what I know. You know what you know. We all know. But the element of weaving a yarn, that may or may not be a reliable tale is another element of making things more fun, right? So what does this have to do with writing? Well, interestingly, it's something that I see writers do, that they treat their story like it's a present that needs to be wrapped, concealed from the reader, and then when the moment is right, unwrapped and revealed. And now, when it comes to giving presents, this is an amazing technique, right? It makes things very fun. I have sad news for you. When it comes to revealing your story, it works against you. It's sort of the opposite of fun. So let me explain a little bit what I mean. There's a story that I like to tell about a famous jockey. And she's probably retired by now. I haven't actually checked on her status. I hope she's still alive and kicking. But this was a famous jockey, and she was famous because she was one of the first women to really compete professionally as a jockey. Her name was Julie Crone. And many, many years ago, I read a profile of her. And, at this point in time, the fact that she was a woman made her such a news story. And people were so fascinated how a very tiny person, without the, theoretically, without the strength of, of the male jockeys, how did she manage? How did she manage to control this gigantic horse, right? And so the journalist, in this kind of slightly sexist way, is talking to her about this, and she decides to show him, and she gets on the practice horse, like the mechanic, like the mechanical bull. It's not, it's like a practice horse. And she gets on it and she starts describing, you do this with the whip, you do this with your legs, you do this with the rein, you say this in the horse's ear. So it's an amazing demonstration. And the journalist is like, yeah, but still, the horse is like thousands of pounds and you are so tiny. How do you know that you have the power to control this gigantic horse? And she looked at the journalist like he was just dense and said, you don't get it. The horse is helpless. The horse is in the air. Now, I was so struck by this story because to me it demonstrated something about influence, about how we have, in the right circumstances, we have way more control, more power than we think we do. And as I've, contemplated my own writing practice and tried to find ways to communicate what it's like to my students, because, that is kind of the essence of teaching, right? You want to be able to give people who haven't had the amount of experience that you've had a simulation of the experience so that they can learn faster. They can, I can take 10 years of my own career and, package it in a good lesson and give it to someone and just save them a lot of time. So I contemplated this image so often, the horse is in the air. And I realized that what fascinated me about it is that the reader is like the horse. When you're the writer, you're the jockey, you are this figure who's not even in the room with them. Like, that's how little control you have over the situation. But the reader is helpless because they only know what you tell them as you tell it to them in the order that you tell it to them. So if you decide, I have this great plot, I don't want to give it away, I'm going to spend the first couple of chapters just kind of laying the groundwork, dropping little hints, making, foreshadowing that something cool is going to happen. You think it's like leaving a wrapped Christmas present under the tree where it's just going to build suspense, right? It's just going to build suspense and people are going to be more and more interested to get to the magic day that they are able to unwrap it and discover what it is. But that's not how it works. What happens in fiction is that the reader is like in the air, right? They don't have anything to go on. They don't see the tree. They don't know they're going to get to unwrap it in 2 days. They are not even sure that it's a present. They just see wrapping paper. They just see a barrier between where the goodies are, which is in your story, the dramatic questions that you're going to drop on them, the mission that your hero is going to have, the journey of transformation that they're going to go on. They don't get to see that yet because you put wrapping paper around it. So they just see this opacity. And that is dull. It's boring and it's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating. There's no place for the reader to land, to hold on to. So very, very often, I see writers thinking that they're building suspense when what they are actually doing, this is a big distinction now, instead, they're not building suspense. They are simply withholding information from the reader in this kind of I'll tell you later way, right? Now, I would love to know if anybody here resonates with that, that particular impulse, this feeling that if I tell the reader everything, there won't be any suspense. All right, leave a comment if that raises some familiarity for you, or if you think maybe you've done it and you don't understand why it doesn't work, or you're tempted to do it. Let me know. It's really quite a typical thing that writers do until they've been instructed not to by a stern writing teacher like myself. Give me 1 second. I just want to plug in my computer because it looks like it's not juicing up properly. There we go. I'm back. Boom. Yeah, I don't want to run out of juice in the middle of this conversation. Now we can relax. All right. So this notion of suspense, if it doesn't come from leaving the presents wrapped, right? It works for holidays, but it doesn't work for fiction. Where does suspense in fiction come from? Where does it come from? Well, here's the other thing that writers sometimes feel they need to keep under wraps. What does the main character want? What mission are they on? This is the word we use in Path of the Storyteller, as my students could tell you. What mission have we given our hero? Not, something vague like they want to be happy or they wish they could find love or, but something super specific. And I'm going to give you an example. Charlie Brown has to find a Christmas tree. He has to find one. He's been told he's got to find one. That's his mission. Charlie Brown has to find a Christmas tree. All right. Now, as soon as we know that, we in the audience, we readers, what are we doing? We're engaged. We're invested. We're rooting for Charlie Brown. Our hearts are in our throats as we go with him to go look for a Christmas tree. Why? Because we know what the mission is. The suspense is not, I don't know what the mission is, right? Imagine if the story is watching Charlie Brown just wander around. He's just wandering. He's just walking through whatever town that is that they all live in, where the grown-ups go, he's just walking. He's just wandering. He's looking. He's thinking. He's looking. We don't know what he's looking for because the author of the story has decided that it's more suspenseful to withhold that information. Oops, no. Watching Charlie Brown wander around, if we don't know what he's looking for, is boring. It makes us disengaged. There's only so much watching him wander that we're going to have time for. We've got cookies to bake. We've got stuff to do. The minute we know, we want him to find the tree. We're looking with him. We're like looking for trees that he might not see. Like we're so engaged. We're so identified. We're so into it, right? We really want him to succeed. And that is where suspense comes from. It comes from this combination of actually defining such a clear mission that the reader can get on board with it, that they can identify with the protagonist, the hero, the main character, and get as invested as that character is in whether or not they're going to achieve their mission. This way, we know, are they getting warmer or are they getting cooler? Like if they see a great tree, yes, we're almost there. We almost achieved the mission. If we see no good trees, we're like, oh no, what are we going to do? There's no good trees left, right? We know how the game is played. Like we know the rules of the game. We have a team to root for. And so we know if we're winning or losing. It gives us a continual engagement with the plot. We're continually re-engaged with whether or not the hero is getting closer to their goal or further from their goal. This cannot happen if the writer mistakenly decides that it's more suspenseful to withhold the information from the reader. Now, why do writers do this? It's like when I explain it like that, I know you guys are like, well, super obvious. Of course, Charlie Brown's got to find a tree. That's what we care about. It's better to know than not know what it is that he's doing. So if that's the fact, I agree with you. It's pretty obvious what's the right way to go here. Why do writers do it? This is my question to you. And if anybody has some comments for me about that, please feel free to post them. I'm happy to address. I'll tell you one reason that writers do it, especially in an early draft. You would be shocked and amazed, maybe you wouldn't be, how many writers will get quite a ways in to writing a draft without themselves really knowing what their hero's mission is. All right. And I'm not calling anybody out, but if you've done this, you don't need me to call you out. Sometimes we ourselves are the hero wandering into the second act, thinking, okay, if I just keep writing pages and inventing incidents and throwing in interesting secondary characters, then maybe I'll find the mission. I'll find it. Maybe it's like, it's under a tree someplace in the second act. So we keep writing in an attempt to discover it, to work it out. Now, is this bad? No, not really. In a first draft, or even in a pre-first draft, in the kind of exploratory writing that we do to figure stuff out, if you are the kind of writer who gets a lot of ideas while writing, if you have this kind of improvisatory energy, that it's okay for you to just kind of sit there in a dream state and make stuff up, invent scenes, let the characters talk to you, just look for inspiration in the actual process of putting words on the page. That's fantastic. You can do that. But here's the dilemma. If you've gotten to that point where you're in the second act, right, of the story, the middle, the long middle, as I call it, because the middle is the most of your book. It's the most of it. It's half or a little more of the length of the entire work is what we call the middle, the second act. This is the portion of the book where your hero is on the mission. We've had the first act where we learned about the world of the hero and what was wrong and why an urgent journey of transformation is necessary. And now the hero crosses the threshold after some resistance, usually maybe a little bit of mentor energy, crosses the threshold into the second act. And now the mission begins, right? I got to get to the Emerald City to see the wizard. That happened. Once you get to Oz, it's the second act. Right away, you have a mission. I need to get home. How am I going to accomplish it? I got to go talk to the wizard. Super clear. Nothing is in wrapping paper, right? It's all exposed. So we know, is Dorothy doing it or is she not doing it? Is she getting closer to her goal or further? Is somebody helping her or is somebody in her way? If you are in the second act and you don't know what the mission is, I often hear from writers like, oh, I'm really good at beginnings, but I get to the middle and I run out of ideas. And, as they say, sometimes the pain is not where the trouble is, right? So if the pain comes in the second act when you're like, I'm stuck, I don't really know where this is going, chances are you have withheld the information about what the mission is, not only from your reader, but from yourself. Can you solve that now? Well, you can try, but I strongly suggest that you go back to the first act and you take a look at who your hero really is and what might be amiss in their opening scenario, in the world that they inhabit before the story even begins. And you take a look at that, you see what journey of change are you designing for this hero? And once you know what journey of change you're designing for them, once you've contemplated what they most want, what they most need, even if they don't realize it yet, the type of mission that you can send them on that is custom designed, like a bespoke suit of adventure, we call it. For them, it will give you some clarity about what kind of mission it is. When we meet Bilbo Baggins, one of my great examples of story structure, when we meet Bilbo Baggins, he's fine. He's just fine. Or so he thinks, right? His house is cozy. His larder is full. His pantry has all the things in it that he likes. The only thing that's not so fine is a kind of a lack of alignment with his true self, because he is not 100% hobbit, is he? That's revealed to us. It's not kept in wrapping paper. It's revealed to us almost immediately by the narrator of the story, who says, look, there was something a little bit odd about the Bagginses, right? And it was rumored that they had a little, fairy blood in them from the Took side, So the conservative, stay home, keep polishing the silver till you're blue in the face quality of the average hobbit was not authentic to Bilbo. That was not who he really was at heart. He was striving to fit in. He was going through the motions and had been for, I think, 50 years. He is at the beginning of The Hobbit. But one cannot go like that forever. It's a kind of a spiritual death, right? Psychologically. So the adventure must come. And once we understand that this is the adventure where Bilbo is going to fulfill the full truth of his nature, he is going to learn to be an adventurer. He is going to, he's going to do the opposite of what he's been doing all along, right? Then, of course, there's the adventure right there for you. Not only is he going to have to leave home and get dirty and be uncomfortable and be unsafe and do all of the things that he's been avoiding all his life. But he's going to have to confront that one, like, kind of central issue, which is this quite entitled, materialistic quality. You know, if I've got mine, the world is good. If I'm comfortable and cozy, the world is fine. You know, this was a little bit of a social critique, right, from Tolkien, that the hobbits are very like, you know, it's a lot about possessions. It's a lot about social status. It's a lot about being respectable, right? So as long as I'm respectable, all's right in the world. There's just not a lot of care about what goes on outside of that. And so this story unspools. The mission is aimed at the theme of greed. Those of you who know The Hobbit know that the mission that Bilbo is set upon is to go confront this dragon who is literally sitting on a hoard of gold. And what happens, the motivation is greed. We're all going to get a piece of the gold if we succeed in this mission. But the true meaning of the tale is revealed at the end when that confrontation with the dragon does not go as planned. By then, Bilbo has grown into a much wiser individual than he was at the beginning. He now has the capacity to see that this was a false goal all along. And what he does in the third act of The Hobbit is just remarkable. He sacrifices his interest in the gold. Now all he cares about is friendship and peace. And he does it all to stop a war that has been unleashed now by the greed of all of the various factions in this world. So it's a great example of how even a quite elaborate mission that seems to fall very neatly into like, oh, that's just an epic fantasy. It's like, well, no, wait. All of that, you know, rises like a little thread of meaning from the innermost need of the character to undergo the journey of spiritual transformation that must happen, that cannot wait another minute. So this is why I say, if you're in the second act and you don't know what the mission is, you know, stop, hold on, you know, take a breath. Go back to the first act where we met your hero, where we got to know the world that they're in, what it was like, what values were at play, how it suited them, and how maybe it didn't suit them. I mean, you can argue that Dorothy was whisked to Oz by a tornado and that is random, but nothing is random in storytelling. You know, story is a work of art. Everything that we put in the frame, we put in there because it belongs in there. It has meaning. Well, when we meet Dorothy, let's not even get to the tornado. When we meet Dorothy, is she happy? No, she's running around trying to get someone to pay attention to her, and nobody is busy. Nobody has time. They're all so busy. Just a bunch of farmhands who don't have time, you know. Auntie Em doesn't have time for her. They're all busy grown-ups doing their work. Her only friend in the world is that little dog. This is not a sustainable situation. She's so upset about it that she sits down and sings a really sad song, a beautiful song, but a sad song about how she wishes things were different, you know? So it's already not so great for Dorothy. An adventure is coming for this girl. It has to. Something has to change. And then what's the worst thing that can happen? If you're a teenage girl and your only friend in the world is a little dog, what is the worst thing that can happen? Some mean old lady comes and tries to take your dog away. Exactly. Right? So the worst thing that can happen happens, and boom, the storytelling gods come for Dorothy in the form of a tornado to take her on an adventure that does what? It teaches her to appreciate her home. Right? So her whole setup in the beginning has to do with the fact that her home is not working for her. It's just not working. And yet the whole narrative then brings her back home. And not only does she appreciate being home, but all those busy grown-ups who didn't have time for her before have had the wake-up call. And now everybody in that story has been elevated by the sacrifices of our heroes, you know, travails, her adventure, her risk-taking, her bravery, her sacrifice, all the things that a hero does over the course of a narrative. They've all been elevated by it. And now they all have their values put straight. This is what's important, home and family. calm down. The pigs can wait. So there you go. Even in super familiar stories that seem like, oh, well, it's a tornado, goes to Oz, Bilbo and the dragon, blah, blah, blah. They are all coming from like these very, very personal, like target of what is the matter? What is the matter? The mission arises from that. It is designed to put your hero on the journey of transformation that they need, not that the one next to them needs, that they particularly need. All right. So once you know it, when do you tell the reader about it? Do you wrap it up in paper and stick it under the tree and say, I'll tell you like about halfway through the book? No, tell them right away. Tell them even before you get to the second act, if you can, right? You can spill the beans about what the mission is before you even get to the second act, because sometimes that mission is presented to the hero like full blown. Bilbo is told the whole story. This is what you're going to do. You're going to go with the dwarves. You're going to go see the dragon. You're going to steal back the gold. You're the burglar. That's how it's going to work. Now it's up to you whether to say yes or no, right? The terms of engagement are laid out quite plainly for Bilbo before the second act even begins. For Dorothy, not so much, because she gets into this situation of running away from home, coming back, tornado, the storytelling gods whisker to Oz. She learns what her mission is as soon as she gets into the second act. She lands in the new world of adventure and learns a little bit about this crazy place that she's in. And right away, it's revealed. I want to go home. Here's how you do it. You got to go see the wizard, follow the yellow brick road, watch out for the wicked witch. Good luck. And go. She's got a clear mission right at the beginning of the second act. You dare not wait longer than that, because the minute you wait longer than that, you have withheld, not only goodies from the reader, but the whole point of the story. Imagine being taken, like you go to a strange land, they've got sports you've never heard of, right? Just new sports. And a friend that you make in this new world takes you to the arena and says, we're going to watch the game. But you've never seen this game before. You can't even tell who's on what team, or if there are even teams, or how the game is played. And you're sitting there in the stands, and every now and then, like half the crowd gets up and goes, yay! And every now and then, half the crowd, gets up and goes, boo! You have no idea. You can't follow the action because you don't know what the objective is. You don't know the rules of the world. The mission has not been disclosed, right? Now, if I take you to a baseball game, I can say, okay, here's the mission. The guys in the field are one team. The guys at the bat are a different team. They've got to run around the bases, get score. You can explain it. You could say, oh, and by the way, we're rooting for the Mets. Yes, I grew up on Long Island. This is just the way it's going to be, people. We're going to have to learn to agree or disagree about this if we're going to be friends. Okay. So we decide what team we're rooting for, and then we're like, yay, boo, yay. But we know we're engaged. We can follow the action. It all comes from being in the know. We have to be in the know. Someone has to spill the beans. And who's it going to be? It's going to be you, the author. It's going to be the writer. You are the jockey, right? The horse is in the air. They don't know anything until you tell them what to do. All right. Now, here's the last thing I want to share with you guys today. I'm just checking the comments to see if we got any questions. Please feel free to post if you've got questions about this or anything else. And this way I'll know what's coming up. The reader doesn't read the book in a gulp. All right. They read it word by word. They read it left to right, sentence by sentence. So this quality of needing to spill the beans is true both on the story level. Now, I've just talked a lot about the mission, which is, that's an idea that propels your entire second act, and, also defines the terms of your third act. We'll talk about that another time. But it's also true on a micro level, on a page by page level. And I often see this, that a writer will refer to something in the first paragraph of the page, and I don't know what they're referring to, and I'll keep reading, and you read through the second paragraph, you get to the third paragraph, and then they explain what that thing was in the first paragraph. So it's all on the same page. It's not like it's been withheld for 50 pages. But as a reader, I'm not taking in the page at a time. I'm only taking in a line at a time, left to right. And so if you actually put the information that I need in the first paragraph in order to follow along, in order to be able to follow the game, so to speak, if you don't put it until the third paragraph, I'm lost. It's not a huge discomfort, but it's a substantial discomfort because I literally don't know what's going on until I get to the third paragraph. Now, how much patience do you have with when you're reading it and you don't know what's going on? How long are you going to stick with it? You know, it doesn't take that long for the reader to get so distant from the book. They're just not sucked into it, you know, and they put it down and they go do something else that's going to please them more. So, so this is even a problem, like on a page by page, on a paragraph by paragraph level. One image I use in Path of the Storyteller with my students sometimes is, you know, you have to think of dominoes, right? We want to line things up like dominoes. We want them to be close enough together that when one thing happens, the next thing happens. If we can have all the dominoes that we need, but if we just put them too far apart, nothing touches, nothing works. It doesn't have this sense of forward propulsion that we want a great narrative to have. And so often the solution is just like moving the things that need to be next to each other. So this is another way. This is another way that this concept of spilling the beans helps us write better if we just reveal what needs to be revealed when it needs to be revealed, not 30 seconds later. Even that tiny little gap, it means that you're, you know, the horse is in the air. Like the reader has nothing to stand on for that 30 seconds. And then maybe you bring them back. But then another 30 seconds or a minute might go by and you do the same thing again. Pretty soon the experience of reading this particular narrative feels so loose and unengaging that they are going to go put it down and go do something else that pleases them better. We don't have the luxury that you know, a movie or a film in the days when the theaters were open, which hopefully they will be again soon. You know, when you go to some place and you sit down and they turn off the lights, you have sit there. It usually takes a fair amount of discomfort in order for you to say, it's not grabbing me. I'm not crazy about it. I'm going to get up and leave. I mean, most of us will be like, we'll put up with a certain amount of discomfort to not get up and leave. That's a huge choice. When we're reading, you know this to be true, right? It's actually quite easy to get distracted. We as writers have to work quite diligently to make our work deliver the goods to the reader, not just as a whole, but paragraph by paragraph, line by line, so that they don't say, I lost my concentration. I'm not paying attention to what I'm reading anymore. I'll go do something else. So the burden is on us. The horse is in the air. We are holding the reins, and we must spill the beans. All right. So, guys, that's what I have for you today. Let me just check one more time, see if there's any questions. And it looks to me like everyone is listening but not asking. So that is awesome. I want to thank you for coming to this live stream, and we are going to continue to do this every Wednesday at 1 p.m. If you're watching on Facebook, you can subscribe to the channel and ding the little bell so that it will send you a notification of the next topic and the next live stream. And if you are watching on Facebook, then you are in the Path of the Storyteller Facebook group. So if you would like to be in that group, just find it on Facebook and join, and you will be approved. As soon as we get to see you knocking on the door. Oh, now I have some comments. Here we go. Yes, and so I wish you a very, very, very happy holiday. And I invite you to think, as the year comes to an end, this year that was so, full of, talk about plot twists, right? Challenges, trials and revelations, as Joseph Campbell says. A good story is full of trials and revelations, and I'm sure we all had those aplenty in 2020. But I invite you to ponder two things. I invite you to ponder your commitment to your writing, and what a truly important calling it is. What a meaningful thing it is to devote your attention to. Storytelling is so it's so much of what keeps us learning and growing as humans. It helps us make sense of our existence. It's nothing less than that. And the stories that we read, whether they're lighthearted rom-coms for entertainment, or searching psychological works, or big adventures, or cozy mysteries, or whatever it is we love to read, they lend some order to the experience of being human, and they lend some optimism. Most of them do, many of them do, to the experience of being human, by showing that change is possible, that obstacles can be overcome, that people can face their demons and come out better for it, And I'm going to venture that most of the stories you love kind of leave you feeling that way. And like you have friends. And in a time when it's not so easy to gather with each other, what a consolation it is to go to our shelves and spend time with some of our favorite fictional friends. They are always there for us, right? They're always there for us. And we storytellers are in the business of keeping that beautiful supply of nourishing story available to our readers, and speaking to the readers, that are ours to connect with. They are out there waiting for you. So I salute you for your commitment to your writing. I invite you to think about what your goals for 2021 might be, and we will talk about those in the new year. Okay. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, join the Facebook group. You could also join my email list at pathofthestoryteller.com. And this way we can stay in touch and keep this conversation going. If you have any thoughts about stuff you'd like me to talk about in future live streams, do let me know. I'd love to answer your questions. Okay. Happiest holidays to all. I'll see you in the new year.